What's up, guys? This is Kaz with Elevate Your Craft, the podcast. Welcome to episode number 7. Guest today is pal o' mine, Mr. Taylor Erwin. Thanks for being here, man. Really appreciate it.
Me and Matt go long way back. Way back to school. I really appreciate you having me on.
No problem. Can't say I anticipated this back at Ryerson. Anyway, for the listeners, today we're going to be talking about comedy. Actual production of comedy, the performance of comedy, and Comedy Uncovered, which is Taylor's company, and his efforts to contribute to the comedy scene in Canada. But I want to get into some background, because we did go to school together at Ryerson, and you were in engineering.
Yep, civil engineering.
How did you end up in comedy? Like, where did it start for you? Was it always there, but just kind of like minimized, and then it just came about?
It was always there. I remember when I was in grade 4, I guess. I'd come home from school and watch Just for Laughs, and I remember my mom, like, in the kitchen working, and she's like, "Why are you always watching that?" And I turned her, I was like, "Because this is exactly what I want to do when I'm older." I'm like, I know exactly, like, that's what I want to do. So
the engineering just was like
the engineering.
This is what I should do with my life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, my dad tricked me. He's like, because originally I wanted to blow up buildings. I wanted to be like a demolition guy.
Okay.
And one day I was talking to my dad, and I was like, "Yeah, I don't know where to go to school. Should I go to like Fleming College for like blasting?" And he's like, "Well, to learn how to blow up a building, you should probably learn how to make one,
build one,
right?"
Yeah,
and I was like, "Yeah, okay, that makes sense." He's like, "Yeah, you should like look at civil engineering." And I was like, "Okay." And we looked at all the engineering, and it was like, "You want to be mechanical?" I was like, "I don't know anything about cars." And then just went through each industrial. I was like, cookie factory, really? Like,
Yeah.
So
he's just kind of sitting there twisting his mustache, like, yes, he's going.
Yeah,
he's falling into it.
Exactly that. And he's like, "Yeah, you want to make a lot of money and then pay for like a good home for me when I'm older."
Yeah.
So he didn't say that at all. That's the first of many flat jokes.
That old, I don't know if it's old generation mentality, but you got to make the money. No matter what, you got to make money. Even if you don't like what you're doing, make money and everything will be
It is
okay.
true. Because he would say, like, I'd be like, "Yeah, I don't have," he's like, "How are you going to pay the bills?" And I was like, "What bills? I don't have any bills."
Yeah,
I'm like 18. I have no bills at all. So anyway, I went to Ryerson, and I just really wanted to go because it was downtown Toronto.
Yeah.
And then, I just did 4 years and stayed in it. I almost got kicked out the first year, because I just got there and partied. I
remember seeing those the nights you'd come just covered in ink or something.
Yeah, purple.
God knows what.
Purple dye. Yeah, I was one of those guys, unfortunately. I really was. I was like, "This is my identity. I want to bet
I don't know what's happening."
Yeah.
At what point, I'm guessing this was sometime maybe later in school or after, did you make that decision where it was like really apparent, where you're like, "Okay, fuck this, I got to go into comedy"?
It was, I had a long-term girlfriend who went to New York. We talked about it, and it was like the best thing for her was go to New York City. So then my plan was I was like, "Oh, I want to go to New York too." Mm-hmm. So I found a company that had offices in New York. I went and applied to them, got the job, and then, did an internship with them and all that jazz. And then ended up, when I graduated, pestering them, and eventually they sent me down to New York City. So I got to live I lived in Harlem for a year, which was pretty good. And at the same time, I'd go to like UCB, but the hours there, working hours, were insane. So it was just me.
You had
no life at all, and like things with my girlfriend weren't good ever.
Mm-hmm. Well, how can they be when you're working all the time?
Yeah, it was the worst.
Yeah.
I'd come home, she'd like, "Hey, I made you dinner." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever."
Yeah.
Fuck you. She's like, "What are you?" I'm like, I didn't like it. So then I got back, and then immediately, as soon as I got back from New York, like 3 days from living in Harlem, they go, "Oh, we're going to send you up to Timmins." So then I went and lived in Timmins for 3 months. And like it went from like September going in Central Park to October 1st, like pretty much snow on the ground in Timmins. And I was like, this is pretty terrible. So I like lost all my buffers. I had like no workout, couldn't go to the gym, couldn't get groceries. all this.
Yeah.
It was just the worst.
It was an awful time.
It was pretty bad. Actually, the first week, my boss, this is how it started. Okay, so I was like, wow, this is a big change. You know, New York to Timmins, big change. And the very first week, I needed furniture in this, like, my apartment that I rented was the basement of a house, and it had someone had dropped a bowling ball through the floor of this apartment, and there was no stove, and I'm like, where's the stove, man? And he's like, oh, you want a stove? And I'm like, yeah, I want a stove. Like, of course I do. What are you, crazy?
It's like no toilet.
Yeah.
Oh, you wanted a toilet, really? Oh, good Lord.
Oh, you don't use a shower like the rest of us in Timmins?
Did you get any? Did you get to see any of the comedy scene in New York? Because I'm sure that was kind of gave you an idea of it anyway. And then you came like kind of that shock of going to Timmins, and now Toronto. You've got the comedy scene there. Did that help in any way?
I see where you're going with it. And no, I didn't get to see anything in New York really.
Yeah,
I wish I could have, but I went once every 2 or 3 weeks, and and then just went to Timmins. And then,
damn Timmins.
Yeah. So when I got back, it was when I went up to Timmins, hated life, lost all my buffers.
Yeah.
Was like low, and I got back, and as soon as I got back, I go into my boss's office. And I love comedy. This whole time, I'm like telling everyone about comedy. I'm like giving away like Sarah Silverman DVDs to like a carpenter from Timmins, right?
Just wanting to share it.
Yeah, I loved it, and I always loved it. I was always consuming it. Then when I got back to Toronto, I go into my boss's office, and he's like, I'm like, yeah, I'm back. It was a really hard time, all this stuff. And he's like, well, I got the feedback, and you didn't do well. They pretty much hated you up there. And I was like, what?
Wow.
I was like, me? Like, and I was killing it, man.
Yeah.
And then anyway,
at least you thought you were.
I thought it was. I mean, except for the time I missed picking up I was supposed to pick up my boss at 6 a.m. And I woke up at 11:30.
Oh, God.
And he's like, oh, man.
That's probably all it took, literally, just that one thing.
And he was French-Canadian, so it was like, this guy just went over the top.
Yeah.
I'm slowly bashing all your listeners. Anyone from Timmins? French-Canadian, out with you.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
There they all go.
So anyway,
Yeah.
they burned me, and I was like, okay, guys, like, engineering is not for me at all. So that's why I was like, I'm quitting. I went to, I like had the best summer of my life, because I was like, I'm out of here, who cares? So
you just did what you want.
And then I went traveling to Thailand and all that stuff.
So what led to that decision? Because I think people find it very difficult to do that, to just say, forget it, I'm done with this job. Does it take literally losing all of that? Like the motivation, the bills, like all that stuff to really make that decision? Or did you just did it click? Did it happen in a second where you're just like, forget it, I'm done?
Well, I wrote I don't know. I was writing these. I wrote a couple one-man shows as I was an engineer, because I took like a one-man show intensive on a weekend, and then I realized like how much fun it was.
Yeah.
And I really loved how creative I was and all this stuff. And I think, I don't know, I think I was like just slowly like listening to podcasts and listening, talking to friends and
getting more involved in the scene overall.
Yeah. And then I just learned a bunch of stuff, it seemed. And I looked around and I was like, to be the best at what I want to do, I can't be here. Like, I'm not going to,
Yeah.
I really want to be the best at what I do. That's it. I want to be the absolute best person that Taylor Erwin can be. I want to fulfill my potential to the absolute max. And I know that I'm not going to do that unless I'm doing something I enjoy.
Yes, exactly.
So when
it kind of changed. You saw the light in comedy.
I saw it.
Yeah.
But I had no idea about comedy. But I remember as soon as I like learned, and it was like reading books. It was watching Before Sunrise, or Before Sunrise is the first one. It's like that Julie Dempsey and Ethan Hawke movie. It's like a European love movie, and I was like, oh,
European love movie.
I'm gonna go to Europe and fall in love on a train.
Like a European rom-com.
It's like a
or
rom-com.
not even a comedy.
No, it's the guy who wrote Boyhood. He wrote
okay.
this movie about an American on a train.
That wasn't Polanski, was it?
No, it was not Polanski. Two different camps.
Oh, okay.
Because the one guy's like revered, and then the other guy's like, whoa.
Just stay away.
Yeah.
Yeah, his name is, I can't think.
He's
of it
like
right.
a Woody Allen who stopped making good movies.
Oh God. Wow, I was way off there, wasn't I? So when you came back to Toronto, like, what's the scene like in Toronto, the comedy scene? Because you said you were learning all about it. You had to really immerse yourself in it. You know, what did you see? What does the scene look like in Toronto or Canada? I mean, from whatever you heard.
At that point, I just saw the scene as great. I would go to Alt Dot Comedy, which is at the Rivoli, in the back of the Rivoli, every Monday night, and it's the best show in the country, consistently the best show in the country. It's like where Kids in the Hall got started. It's where guys like Sean Cullen, I'm not sure if you guys know Sean Cullen, but he's like a big Canadian comic, and like Robin Williams did drop-in sets and all this stuff. People that know the Alt Dog are going to be like, well, he did like one drop-in. And I'm like, yeah, he does them all the time. But it's just this fantastic room, and if you go there and it like romanticizes comedy. Like, it just romanticizes the entire experience because it's $5. It's ridiculous talent. Like, the best in the country. These guys are doing, like, you would see guys that would do comedy specials. Like, you'd watch them on, like, Comedy Now, and then you'd go and you'd see them. Like, I saw John Doerr there do a set, and then 2 days later, and it bombed, by the way. He, like, bombed. It was hilarious.
Oh, no.
It was so funny.
We'll get into that a little later.
But he bombed, and then 2 days later, I saw him on Just for Laughs do the exact same set at the gala and fucking murder. And I was like, I don't know. I loved it so much.
Yeah.
So I would go like twice a week because I still had sketch going on Tuesdays. But that was it hooked me.
Yeah.
Because you go and it was something new every single week.
And good.
And
really
good.
Yeah.
And like organic, and it can't happen anywhere else. Well, it can happen anywhere else all over the country, but that experience doesn't happen, and it's yours, really.
At least for you. Yeah, for you, exactly. It's
like you can't. It's like you try to say it at the water cooler, and you just like butcher every single joke. Then he like took off his shirt and he had drawn suspenders on, which is what John Doerr did. It was ridiculous.
And then just like wah wah. Yeah. Is that where Comedy Uncovered was born?
Actually, I was. Okay, I'm sorry. We gotta back it up just a bit.
Oh, sure.
I hadn't done. I in university. This was like before that. I would still go to the Alt Dot since I was, I don't know, 17.
Yeah.
Almost every Monday I tried to when I wasn't in school. Wasn't killing myself in school, and.
Yeah. Where Comedy Uncovered was born.
Yeah. And I'm not even.
And then we're bringing it back to when it might have been born.
So I did comedy. I started doing, I remember my first stand-up comedy set is when I was 18, and I went to this place called The Living Well. It was on Yonge Street. And I walk in this room, and I'd written this set, and it wasn't very good, obviously. But I'd written it, and there were, decent jokes. I tried to make it clean and all this stuff, because I tried to, be the guys on Just for Laughs.
Yeah.
And I go in, and it was actually a pretty good room. There was I don't know, maybe 15 people and maybe 6 audience members that were sitting up front, and there was a stage and a mic. This is all open mics.
The room refers to how many people are there, or just the setup, everything combined?
The room is everything combined.
Okay.
Because I can get into rooms.
Yeah, where this certain stage isn't good enough, but the seating. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
or there's a homeless guy in the front seat.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You hear that, and you're like, oh yeah, that's an outrageous story. It's no, that happens at shows regularly. Yeah. A homeless guy hears something going on. He just walks in and he starts yelling, and you're like, oh,
okay. How does this even happen?
So Yeah.
Yeah, we're going back again.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. So
and you wrote the set.
I wrote a set. I go up on stage. Or no, I'm standing by the bar, and I hear this guy. He's like, yeah, I was like driving traffic, and this guy cut me off, and I knew who it was gonna be, right? I pull up beside him, fucking, and then just goes off like this racist rant, like this thing. And I was like, and as soon as it burnt. I don't know. I had never heard something like that, like live. Like, and this guy isn't just. It's not recorded. This guy's yelling it to people. He's like, yeah, these fucking bad. And you're like, what? I was like, whoa! And he's like, who said that? He's like, oh yeah, you think you're so fucking tough? Let's hear what happened. Let's hear what you have to say when you get up here, motherfucker. And I was like, oh.
Called out.
Yeah. And I was like, well, this is comedy. So I went up on stage and just blacked out.
Oh, and you did? You went up?
Oh yeah, I went up.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, and
what was that like?
It was good. It was really exciting. Like, heart is just blown up. And
yeah. So you blacked out. You mean you got in the zone?
No, man. I've never been in the zone. That's one of the things I joke about with other comics. They're like, yeah, you know how like when you're in there and I'm feeling the room, and I'm like, no, I'm just trying not to faint when I'm up there.
Yeah,
it's like, so I'm trying to remember all my jokes, because I don't know if you guys can tell, but I have a bad memory.
Yeah.
As we're talking, I'm like,
You probably just worry too much, and then it gets in the way.
That's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, don't forget the next joke. Like, I have a set online. I'm in the middle of my set, doing really well. I'm not going to say killing, because like that's an asshole thing, but I was doing really, really well. And then at like this punchline of this joke, I'm just like, what did I say? And everyone's like, huh, what? Like, is
this guy serious?
Is this part of the joke?
Yeah.
Actually, my fiance, she sits now in the audience, and she'll yell the next part of my joke out, and then I'm like, oh yeah. Like, literally, that's what happens.
It's really a duo. You have someone there just wait. Yeah. That's awesome.
She's like, that thing about coffee. And I'm like, oh yeah, coffee, right, guys?
You should turn it into a shtick.
It is.
That's your shtick.
Yeah. It only works when she can come to my show. So
yeah, I guess that's true. So that's kind of where comedy uncovered, at least in your brain, kind of came about.
No, I'm sorry. We're going to have to back it up.
Back it up even more. It's all right. We're doing reverse chronology here.
Is this even cohesive? We're just like, Scott, he was in Timmins, and then he was something about French Canadians being assholes.
That doesn't need to be.
No, so that's when I did comedy, and I'd always tell people, I'm like, oh yeah, I do comedy, and then I'm an engineer, and they're like, oh, that's quite the separate thing.
Yeah.
And then one day, I realized I was going to quit and go traveling, and as soon as I did that, here's here we go.
Yes, here we go.
Here's the uncovered part of comedy.
Yes.
I broke up with my girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
And then the next day was the best day of my life. I was like, I can do anything? I can do anything I possibly want in the world. Like,
without worrying about anyone else.
Without anyone else. I had some money saved up, and then I was like, oh, okay, I can do anything I want. There's nothing stopping me. I was like, okay, like, sky's the limit. So then I planned this trip, and this trip to Thailand, and in doing that planning, I was like, what am I going to work on? I was like, you know what? I'm really going to pursue this comedy thing. I'm really going to do that. Yeah. So I quit my job, and I was like, okay, I plan to quit my job. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do comedy. And I was talking to my best friend, Steve, and he's like, you should, like, why not? What's stopping you from, like, recording all this stuff as you go through it? And why not make it into like a magazine and give something to the community? And I was like, that's a great idea. I should do that. So then that's where it came from. It was really like, if I'm going to start from square one, and this is the mission I continue today, it's like, if I'm going to start from square one, I'm just going to document everything I learn. So then other people don't have to start from square one and relearn the same thing.
Them. Yeah.
It's just crazy how much, and it's insane how much stuff that you learn over, like, I've been doing it for like 10 years, and
well, you accumulate a ton of knowledge, right, and experience too,
and you don't realize the stuff that you didn't know, and it just seems like common sense now, but you see guys make the same mistake over and over, and it's just really frustrating. It must be frustrating.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. That's actually like a really good transition into actually talking about what Comedy Uncovered is, and what your vision is for it, what you want to do, and what you've already done in the scene anyway.
Yeah, well, Comedy Uncovered, it is pretty much Toronto's nutshell of the comedy scene. Like, it's a nutshell of the Canadian comedy scene. That's what I'm aspiring to. So what I do is I do interviews with comedians. I have all the open mic listings. I produce shows, and I used to have all the listings in Toronto. Like, I had the most comprehensive listings in Canada for comedy shows, and I used to have recommended shows because there was nothing to me more frustrating than seeing a guy and you'd be like, who's that guy? Who was that guy that I saw? He had a mustache and he was fucking hilarious. Like, I don't know
that
his
you
name.
didn't know who he was really bothered you.
So,
and other people didn't know who he was.
Yeah, and they'd be like, oh, I saw this. I'm like, they're like, oh, I went to a comedy show, saw this guy, and he was like, oh, he was this guy who was talking about like his girlfriend and his apartment, and you're like, that's
it's a lot of guys.
Yeah, for everyone at home, I'm making like a come on man gesture with my hands.
Yeah. It's like, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what was so frustrating, is no one knew who these guys were. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to say, like, oh, you don't know who these guys are? Okay, this is this guy, this is this guy. They're on this show tonight. You should go see that show. If you have to go, every night I used to go, if you have to go see a show, go see this show. If tonight you want to go out to comedy, go see this show. And out of 15 or 20 shows, I'd be like, this is the show to see, and here's why. And I did that for 2 years. Yeah. And how
do those listings come about? Do the acts come to you and say, I want to do a show, and then you promote it?
Yeah, they would. It was a lot of Facebook invites, and I had a form on the website, and then I also referenced like Now, and then some of the other events around, online and all that stuff. But it eventually I was spending like 10 or 12 hours a week on just listings, and my hits were, 100 a day for 2 years or whatever, 200 a day or 300 a day. And it just wasn't worth it to me. It was it's so much time. And
the results weren't really correlating with what you wanted necessarily.
But here's the thing. Even if you had seen that little box that said, 5,000 page views today versus 25,000 page views, I'd be like, well, where, like, what's the difference? What am I getting? What am I getting from this?
They're seeing it, but is it really driving them to the shows kind of thing?
Is it, are they going to the shows? And even if they do go to the shows, I just didn't even know for myself. I was like, well, I want to get out of engineering. And by the way, when I came back, I was like a waiter at Chuck Astor's, and I was like, oh man, it was unloading trucks and setting up
doing
corporate
whatever
events.
You needed to do, yeah.
It's the worst. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Let's not make you relive it.
No, 'cause I'll forget halfway through.
Yeah. So what goes into putting a show together? So right now, they come to you with a listing, or they say, I want to put on a show. What's the first step? Where do you go from there, if that's even the first step?
Well, the way it kind of works is there's a ton of comedians there's a Toronto Facebook stand-up community page, and there's like 3,000 comedians on it. And that gives you an idea of like how many comedians are in the city. And there's a lot more than that. But I'd say there's less that are actually out doing it, every night, doing the grind like every single day, which is what it takes to be good. But these guys there were so many guys in the scene, and they were putting on these shows for like their friends, and it's a really old model and industry. That's the other thing too. I started it because it's such an ancient model the way it's done. I was like, you got to modernize this for sure. So that was one of my aspirations as well. But there's all these guys producing all their own shows, and they're putting their friends on, and some of them are getting, they get featured in Now, and they get cover pages every now and then. And people will, they'll just invite me to these shows, but they're producing their own show anyway. And it wasn't until like 2 years in that I had the idea, or no, a year in, that someone said, why don't you produce a show? And I was like, that's a fucking great idea. I was like, I already know all these people. I already know who's the best.
Yeah.
So I just produce these comedy shows, and I produce them at Comedy Bar once a month, and then some other one-off ones like part of comedy festivals or whatever. And yeah, they sell out. They sell out almost every month.
I'm sure it allows the talent too to really focus on their craft too. Like they don't have to worry about putting on the show now. They can focus on themselves and then let you do the heavy lifting. Would you say that's somewhat true? Or?
It is true. Like in the sense that only my show, not only my show. There's a million great shows, but my show is consistently. There's a good audience, people that like comedy go, and the talent I put up is unique. I think they're unique and they're saying something. They have something to say when they go.
Unique style.
So it's not just them being like, yeah, so I'm fucking my dick or whatever, right? Like, you know, like,
and it's like, oh, not another one of these guys.
Yeah, it's like, you know, because I just like a certain type of comedy, and I think that resonates with people.
Yeah.
That's why, and I also don't discriminate. I'm not because I'm not trying to be a comedian anymore. I can just say, like, I don't really have anything politically involved to say, because I don't need to get on other people's shows and all this stuff.
Benefits you only. Kind of that seedy.
So I just say, this guy, like, I really like this guy. It's the easiest thing ever because I just cherry pick who's the best, and you know, I try not to have the same people on the show more than once, but
at the same time promoting them, helping them, you know, get the exposure.
But these guys, you know, it's not like it's not like my show is a big deal in their minds. Like, they'll do my show. There's 100 people there. They'll do, if it wasn't my show, they'd go do another show. It could be for 50 people. It could be for at Yuck Yucks, where they're doing, you know, in front of 200 people. Like, I'm another show. And these guys don't like rely on me for anything. I try to promote them as best I can, putting their bios up, and I try to promote it as best I can and get their names out there because I think they're really worth it and they should be recognized. But
it's not like they're relying on your.
No, not at all. Because they do. These guys do. Sometimes there's one of my friends he did Dom Pear. He did 40 sets in a week.
Wow.
He's got the Canadian the recorded highest number of shows. He did 40 in a week in Canada. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, Dom's a fantastic Dom Pear.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic stand-up. He grinds so hard. He works so incredibly hard, and it shows. He's one of my favorite times with Comedy Uncovered is when I had Dave Merhage, who's another big guy. Dave Merhage headline, and I think Dom Pear did a spot, and they're standing in the green room, and they're talking about the audience. And he's like, okay, there's this guy in the front, and then I kind of reach in. He's like, you kind of have to look to the second row and feel this. And he's giving him the layout of the room and the vibe of the room.
Yeah.
And it was like a comedy nerd's
wet dream.
It was like I was like, oh, I got a picture of it, and it's been my favorite moment in comedy.
Wow. So they were like analyzing the audience and who they might have to watch out for, or
Dom was saying, oh, there's this guy in the back over here, and it's a little bit like thick over here. This isn't what they say.
Sure,
but this
paraphrasing kind of thing.
Yeah, Dom be like, oh, never say thick. Dom's a angry guy. He's the fucking best. I'm telling you, he calls it. He's the best because he calls it like it is.
Yeah. Pulls no punches, just whatever.
He's the. I'd love to butcher one of his pieces right now, but you got to go see him online.
Yeah.
Or live preferably.
So once you have an idea, they come to you. You know who's on the set. What happens next? Like, you contact the venue, and then you say, I want to do a show this night, this time.
So to produce a show, first thing you do is you find a venue. You book the venue, and then you reach out to the performers that you want on and hope they're available, and then that's it.
And then you book them, and then just promote the shit out of it.
And then promote the shit on Facebook or and submit it to Now and all there's like Toronto Arts Online, there's Snapped, there's Universe, there's BlogTO, there's all this stuff, and you just promote the shit. I don't even know if people even look at those things. I just put them on.
That's the thing. The uncertainty is you just hope people show up. I guess, right?
Yeah, and there's some, and it's it's so fickle because, well, not fickle because you really got to know your date, because I've been burned way more than once by like, I booked a show with like a fantastic headliner on World Pride Day finale, and then it was like Digital Dreams, and it was a long weekend.
Oh no.
And like,
you're lucky if you get 5 people.
yeah, exactly.
Kind of
so
yeah. So what attracted you to the business side? Because now you just mentioned that you're no longer going to be, or you want to pursue performance anymore, or the grind.
Yeah.
So you're obviously more attracted to the business side of comedy.
Yeah.
Is that just, I guess, a personality? Did you have bad experiences in the performance side, or did you just realize you got to focus on one?
No, I didn't, someone said this the other day. They said, I didn't miss it. I didn't miss comedy. Like, you talk to, part of what I do at Comedy Uncovered now is I produce and I put on these weekend intensives where I try to teach the comedy industry to new performers, people that are like ideally 3 to 2 years in, or 3 years in. We had a guy who was 4 years in. And I pretty much try to say, okay, these are kind of the milestones you should be striving for, and here's the baseline of what you should have and do, and this is how you approach these certain things. And then I had 3 very talented and revered performers. This guy, DJ Demers, who was just on Conan O'Brien, and then Pat Thornton, who's had his own show, and he's just on Sunnyside on City TV. He does sketch, improv, and stand-up. And then I also had Dom, who just, oh man, he beat the shit. He was like a drill sergeant.
The angry Dom.
He just showed up, and he was like, if you do this, you're a fucking idiot. It was so good. I don't know if he, I think he did say that. He didn't call people idiots at all, but he's like, this is
indirectly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Love you, Dom. But you guys got to check out Dom. This guy is the best.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's important to secure the right people for that too, especially if you want to attract people that you're going to teach.
Yeah.
All those types of things.
Well, and the thing is, there's so many bad courses and stuff where it's like, oh, just give me your money and we'll tell you you're good. And it's really important to take classes, but some of the vibe and the stigma around comedy classes are that like you're an idiot if you go to them. That's the feeling that some people, like some of them,
because they might be scams or something, or just
just like, well, not that they're scams. It's just the big thing is they go, and everybody knows it. It's, well, to be good you have to do it. Just go do it. And the other thing is you can't teach someone how to be funny, right? It's like, well, it's true. You can't teach them how to be funny, but you can teach them the attitude for how they can better themselves and how what kind of attitude they should have when they go to these things, so they absorb the most amount of information and not positive feedback, but so they absorb the most amount of information so they can grow faster.
Like communication skills, business skills, and then tailor toward comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the business of comedy.
So that's what I'm trying to do with these courses is I'm trying to, tell people, okay, this is how, if you want to make a little bit of money off the top, produce a show, but don't produce too long, because then you'll get known as a producer, and you should have a website, and you should
do this.
This is how you use social media, and then I had performers like Pat and DJ and everyone come in and talk for an hour, and say like, okay, this is how you find your voice. Pat Thornton, he's a triple threat. He does all 3. He came in and he's like, okay, this is how you find your voice. This is how you find your persona, not your persona, but your what style. You have to say, you have to say, really. Because Bill Burr is the bomb. Bill Burr didn't start doing that. He started doing a very different thing. He started, like, the Bill Burr when he started is not the guy who you see now, and that's because he found his voice. He found out what resonate, what he is best at, and what resonates with him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I try to get these guys to come in and talk about is like, no one's going to know more than these guys who have been doing it for like 15 years and just are incredibly talented. Pat comes in and he goes, this industry is you. Everything you want, you can get. Just, it's all you. You have to be in it because you love it.
Yeah. Otherwise, don't even bother.
There's no point. That's why I quit performing, because like I would do it. I as soon as I got off stage, I loved the rush, but that was the happiest because I could go home.
Yeah, you were done.
I was done.
Yeah,
and I would like dread performing.
Because that moment before you performed was probably pretty awful. Or you're nervous.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I forget things.
Yeah,
I don't know if I've said that yet.
Yeah,
but.
I guess. No, that's interesting dynamic. And now, as far as you are in the business side with Comedy Uncovered, what did you wish you knew at the beginning when you started versus now?
Oh man.
Or even compare yourself now to how you were at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, for me, my path is going to be a little bit different because, well, no, it's not, because when you start doing comedy, you don't know that you won't end up doing comedy. Mm-hmm. You start comedy because you think you're going to be you think you're going to be successful.
Yeah.
And you want it. I started doing comedy thinking that I was going to be famous. It wasn't me, that's the only reason I was doing comedy was to be famous. That's not it. I was doing comedy because I thought I just love comedy. I love everything I love writing. When I write, I laugh. Like I'm laughing to myself.
Yeah.
Because it's hilarious. And I like performing when it goes well. But, but it just wasn't worth it to me to keep... it just wasn't worth it. Those 5 minutes, you got to travel an hour there. You got to hang out in this place. You probably got to buy a beer. And then you got to watch a bunch of shitty comedy. Not, that's all part of it.
Yeah.
But you
got to put your time in, kind of.
Yeah, you got to put. I shouldn't have said shitty comedy. There's a lot of great performers, and everyone just trying out stuff. And that's the whole point. The whole reason of open mics is to get better.
Of course.
But you go there and you go to these mics, but some of the guys, they're not trying to do that. They're just going up for the laugh. Like those guys. Not
really taking it seriously, kind of.
Yeah, that's like, I used to say that, I'm serious about comedy. Mm-hmm. And I was focused too much on the end goal and not on just enjoying it.
Enjoying the process. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, and it just literally enjoying it. Like no one, this is exactly what Pat said as well. It just hit me, it hit home. No one is going to hand you an award. And well, if you, luckily, hopefully someone does, but no one is going to throw you a party and say, hey man, you made it. Like this is the moment. This is what you've been waiting for. Like that's not like it's, obviously it can happen when you go to like, award shows.
Of course,
but,
yeah.
But you're not going to...
in your own mind.
You're not going to hit a point where it's like, okay, I'm 35 and I've done these things and okay, I've made it. And now I'm...
Yeah.
No, you're going to get there and you'll be like, okay, well, there's still all this stuff I want. There's all...
It'll never be enough.
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, what about Adam Sandler? What about this?
Yeah.
And it's... I wish I had known that when I started that. Like, you just do it because you love it. Mm-hmm. You're in it because if you're doing it because for any other reason, it's not going to happen for you. And why would you waste your time doing it? Mm-hmm. It's the odds are so incredibly small, and it's not even odds, man. It's not even odds. It's like you have to actually love it because you're not going to go to a shitty show up north, and you're not going to do everything it takes to be the best because you don't care enough.
The person that loves it's going to do more than the person who's just kind of meh.
Yeah.
And then that will set them apart long term.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can try to fool yourself, and you can try to say, no, I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to be that guy. And it's, you'll get caught. You'll catch yourself. You're going to realize that's like, oh man, yeah, I really don't want to, I really don't want this enough. Like, just hearing these stories of comics going up to places and this shitty stuff, and I was like, man, I have a hard, like, personally, I had a hard enough time just like getting in my car, driving like 20 minutes. and then doing an oak in front of people, like my friends. Like a lot of these comics are my friends.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I had a hard enough time doing that. Like, never mind sleeping in a hotel for like, what, 10 minutes? 10 minutes of material? Like, or
and driving, whatever,
or,
an hour, doing it then.
Oh, man, and getting $75.
Yeah.
Oh, no, like, what? No, I want to, like,
guess you made the right decision.
I want to, like, get Chinese food with my fiance and watch,
Netflix.
Yeah, and I want to watch Bill Burr. I want to.
Yeah.
So that's the big thing I learned is, like, and I'm telling you, I've been doing this a long time, and I've only learned that life lesson, I'd say, in the past 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really hit home.
Well, that's what a lot of people don't realize is it takes time. You got to be in it, doing it, and then it just comes with experience and surrounding yourself with good people. And
that's
that type of
yeah,
thing.
and having the right attitude and always growing and pursuing it as hard as pursuing it as best you can.
Yeah.
And trying to always experimenting. Like I don't even know how many times I've gone in a way with Comedy Uncovered and then, been like, wow, that way is going nowhere. But at least now I know that's
well,
not.
now you know exactly.
That's not the way to go.
Yeah, yeah. And knowing what you know of the scene and the comedians that are your friends or aren't necessarily your friends, what's the scene like in Canada for them? Do you think they feel limited being in Canada? Or any new comedians, do you think they're like, oh, I'm going to move to, California or LA or New York in order to make it? I can't really get too far in Canada.
Well, yeah, that's the, that's the kind of the sad thing is that if you want to be big, if you want to be successful, you have to pretty much go to LA or New York, because I'm not gonna like jump on this bandwagon, but they do. The argument does have some weight and validity, is that for whatever reason, Canadians don't trust or respect comedians unless there's someone in America. So there's guys like, well, I won't say names, but there's phenomenal comics that are in Canada that like they don't have the recognition. Like they're insanely talented. They're really good, but they're just not gonna be famous ever. They're never gonna make it
if they stay where they are.
And that's the thing. Like a lot of these guys, they're on their way down from their career. They've gone up and they've got moderate success, and they have success in comedy. They're making a living in comedy, which is enough. Just making a living in comedy.
That's an accomplishment.
That's an accomplishment. That is enough. That's what you should be aspiring to do. But these guys that now have come back, like they pretty much what happens. All right, pretty much what happens.
Breaking it down
is you'll be a performer in Canada. All right, so let's just say you're. I was gonna go into a really shitty joke. I won't. So you're a performer in Canada. You've been doing it for like, at least 3 or 4 years until like 2 years. First 2 years are garbage. You're garbage. You don't realize it. You're going to learn a lot of stuff. First 2 years are garbage. And then like year 2 to 5, that's when you start getting the groove and you start being able to write better and you start being able to perform better and you've done enough shows where how things are going and how to get them back. And
you're more confident on stage.
All of those things. Yeah. You're just a better performer. And then what you do is you pretty much either try to get an agent here and get spots on TV and get credits, and then go down to LA and try to get go to like pilot season or whatever down there, or you get on I don't even know,
like
man.
The road where you're like performing at conferences and maybe weddings, or you kind of just do whatever you can.
You have to. Everyone has to do those. Except the only guy. This is way so general, man. I'm gonna be getting so much flack for this shit. Just being like, that's not how it. well,
Yeah.
it is.
There's no one formula for everyone.
There is
kind of
not.
thing. Yeah.
Okay, so just going back to this LA thing.
Yeah.
LA and New York, you kind of, as a comedian, you have to go. You go to New York if you want to be focused in stand up and being a better comic, because there's so many shows in New York, like the density down there. You can go and hop from one set to another, and each one pays and all this stuff. And you go down to LA if you want to be like kind of on TV and take that route and try to develop stuff, like try to get on NBC pilots and blah blah blah, all that. So, and that's how a lot of these guys made it. Is like they didn't make it here. Like Nathan Fielder, he was a correspondent on This Hour's 22 Minutes. It was great. He was doing the same character that he's doing now. He was doing that on 22 Minutes. It's only because he went down, and now everyone gives a shit about this guy,
because
right?
He went down
because
there.
He went down there. Oh, now he's doing the same act, and he's part of a group called Laugh Sabbath in Toronto. They're like a collective, collective, and guys like Tim Gilbert and Sarah Hennessy and James Hartnett and Aaron Eves and all these and Chris Locke. Man, these great performers. They all are in the same camp. Like, if you like Nathan Fielder, go check out Comedy Bar at 9:30 Thursdays. These guys they're doing something new. They're experimenting all the time. But there's so many talented comedians. And anyway, I guess the way to make it is you got to try to get credits here in Canada, and then hopefully you can go down there, and then you have enough credits in Canada so that if someone offers you someone offers you a spot in the States, like a position, you have enough credit that you can get pay $5,000, get a visa for 3 years.
Yeah.
And
then build from there.
Yeah.
Huh.
So
it seems like there's a lot of comedy landmarks there too. Certain clubs where people go that just maybe bring up comedians. I don't know. Are there any of those landmarks in at least Toronto where it's like, that comedians kind of discuss, like, you got such a great club?
Right now, it's always been the Rivoli. There's a few. There's the Rivoli, which is, that's where Kids in the Hall got started. I love the Rivoli, man. They're the best. Monday nights, $5, run by, it's produced by this agent at Diamond Field Entertainment who represents Sean Cullen and Chris Locke and a lot of these guys. They're really Mark Forward. If you got Mark Forward, you got to see Mark Forward too. That's what's so crappy about comedy, is like I go, you gotta go. Oh, it's so good.
You just know how good they are.
Yeah. You ever like kissed a girl? It's like kissing a girl. They're like, what? That doesn't explain anything, You're just basking in your own pleasure when you say those things. Exactly.
Yeah.
So this guy Morgan Flood, he runs it. He's a fan of comedy. He loves comedy. He's an inspiration to me for what he tries to do for the scene and what he does for comedians and the Canadian comedy scene. So Rivoli on Monday nights is fantastic. Comedy Bar any night is going to be pretty good. Comedy Bar is at Ossington and Bloor in Toronto. It's like a fantastic alt club, I guess you could say, but not really. Like, it's just a comedy club. People produce their own shows and they promote their own shows. They pretty much just rent the spaces from them, and then you buy beer and nachos from them.
Oh, it was great. The show I went to of yours back in February. It's a really cool place.
Yeah, it's a really lively place. If you want to take a girl on a sick date and she doesn't know, she hasn't been to Comedy Bar, I'm telling you,
do it.
Do it. And well, it's something vulgar,
even
right?
for me, not someone not knowing that much about comedy. I think it's been the second comedy show I've ever been to. I think I went to one in like Casino Niagara, like 7 years
usually
ago,
how it goes.
Or something. I remember nothing of it.
That's one of the main reasons I started Comedy Uncovered is to. It's going to sound so pompous, but to educate the public that there's more than Yuck Yucks, guys.
Yeah.
Like, if you go to a Yuck Yucks, like, sometimes, man, I saw this guy at Yuck Yucks in like Ajax when I was with my ex. No, actually took my ex's sister. Hilarious, and not sleazy, but kind of. No.
Yeah.
So we're there, and this guy, he goes off, and he comes out in like his mom's sweater, and he's like, his nickname was like, he called himself Donkey Hammer. And I remember it, and it was this guy was he was so funny.
Yeah.
And he was so out there and outrageous. Some of these Yuck Yuck comics, they're phenomenal. So, like this guy, Terry Clement, he is pretty much all the comedians in Canada, all the really good ones. Sorry, not good ones, but, well, no, they are. They're all, that's how you pretty much do it, is you join the Yuck Yucks roster because they're going to give you big audience and consistent shows.
Yeah.
But just so happens that some of the it's a type of comedy, a type of club comedy is it's a little, it's its own thing.
Okay, so do certain clubs like promote more certain styles of comedy?
Oh my God, man. Oh yeah.
Really?
Like,
Okay,
well,
so it's
not
not
like
just
styles of comedy, but that's just how it goes. Like Comedy Bar, it's produced by people within the scene. It's produced by comedians themselves, usually. Well, always, pretty much.
Yeah.
Very few people. There's me and maybe a few other guys that produce a show out of Comedy Bar who aren't comics.
Yeah.
So all these guys, they're all constantly performing. They're experimenting. They're trying new things, and they're gonna put on like a way different show. Like they're gonna go out and do, like, I don't even like the what was it? I just saw a clip the other day of Sarah Hennessy and Andrew Johnson and Nick Flanagan, and they were performing a script of, I forget, it was like, I'm not gonna say Sex and the City, but it was like they were performing like a 90s like mom rom-com movie.
Okay.
And they were just saying the dialogue, but it was ridiculous. Like it was terrible. It was so terrible. Like the dialogue was so terrible that was the joke.
Oh, okay.
And I really did that bit justice there.
Yeah. Well, I think you'd have to go see it.
Yeah, but I mean, these guys, like, they're doing these outrageous shows. Like, there's these improv troupe, Mantown. They're like, I think, first Friday every month at 10:30 in the Comedy Bar main stage. They do this show where it's like it's improv, but it's like a drinking game, and they're like just a bunch of bros on stage doing fantastic improv.
Yeah.
You're not going to get that if you go to Yucks. If you go to Yucks, it's going to be like, the iconic idea of Yucks in some that some people think is like the guy who's been doing comedy for 25 years hasn't changed his set in 10. Like, just hasn't.
Yeah.
He's
maybe
the road
more
dog.
consistent. They don't want to take any chances, less risk. They kind of maybe screen the people a little more based on experience.
Yeah, well, they're trying to just hit. They've got bigger audiences, and they're not like comedy nerds, you could say. Some of them are, but a lot of the guys are like, they go out to Yucks if they're going out to like the club that night, or they're like celebrating a bachelorette or whatever it is. Like they go out for a night of comedy at a comedy club, and that's awesome. But that's not the same as these independently produced shows where the guys are in the scene.
Yeah, well, those are probably the independent ones, more hit or miss, perhaps.
Yeah.
Those audiences probably appreciate that more because they love comedy.
Yeah.
So even if it's a horrible show,
Yeah.
they'll probably still get something out of it, whereas somewhere like Yuck Yucks, they want to actually please the audience on a more consistent basis.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
And it's more for people that, I don't mean to, man, it's going to sound so, I don't mean to sound snobby at all.
Yeah.
These are just like kind of general attitudes that I've
that you've
developed
seen, observed, and maybe have.
And carry, and I'm racist. No, that was a bunch of jokes. Everyone before I was making, I wasn't making racist jokes. I was just saying, that'd be funny if during this interview we found out I was racist.
You're like, all of a sudden the show ends.
Just drop it. And that's all we have. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
So, where were we with this?
I was just discussing the venues and kind of how I mentioned Casino Niagara, and then it's like, well, that's the standard. People who don't really know much about comedy, that's where they go. And I was just kind of saying too, like when I went to that show at the Comedy Bar, it was an awesome experience, and I definitely want to go more. And I find it very odd that more people don't go to these shows.
I know, right?
It's because it was a blast.
I know.
And it's a cool environment. It's you have your forms of entertainment out there. You have your movie theater and whatever, regular nightclubs or pubs. But this is like, even just once a month, for God's sake. Like, it was really unique experience. And it makes me wonder why more people don't do it. Whether that's exposure, I guess, or
well,
I don't know.
See, if you notice there, I didn't cut you off at all because I'm going to cut that and use it as a testimonial because that's exactly it. Like you it's such a great time and it's so hard. That's why you kind of sounded like I did. Like, you don't, like, it's just, it's so good.
Comes from someone, like a general. No, and it's totally true. Because, I mean, even before I went to the show, when I thought of comedy, it was like comedy films or TV, and it wasn't necessarily the performance aspect of it. And I kind of have a little bit of an appreciation of what goes into that. Like, I'd seen comedy specials where, they were performing or just for laughs, but actually being there is a pretty unique experience too.
It's the best date.
Yeah, this is kind of where I want to go into now, because I'm sure that people who do hear about comedy or just stumble upon a show, I've always wondered, like, what is it like going up there for the first time and then say, like, the third time? Because, like, sometimes in movies you hear the mobster say, like, the first guy you clip, it's awful. And then the second one's still pretty awful. But then the third time, it's kind of like, whatever. Is that what it's like for going on stage? Like, what does it feel like to go on stage for the first time?
I mean, I think I honestly do. I think everybody should go on stage because you never know if you're going to love it. But the first time I did it, I was, like I said, I loved comedy for 5 or 6 years before, 10 years before I started. I loved comedy. I would consume it all the time. I wrote this set. I looked online for an open mic. I found one. I went to it. Terrified, man. Oh my God, terrified. And then I did my set, and when I came off stage, it was like the best feeling I've ever had. It was, I could have flipped a car. Like, I was so pumped up. Yeah. And it was such a great feeling. I remember calling my girlfriend at the time, just being like, I did it. It was the best. I want to do this again and again and again and again. I want this feeling again. It was definitely it's exactly like getting high, because you're getting high. Like, that's
high on natural body.
Yeah. That's what it is. It's the same chemicals. It's the same feeling. That's what it is. Yeah. You go up and you're like, whoa, this is insane. And then the next time you do it, you're still excited, but now you start to look and it's not as great. Like, it's great. It's fantastic every time, but not every time. Yeah. But it's not, the next time you go up, okay, well, now you have a little bit of an agenda. You've seen what it's like, and now you're going to play it a little different. Like, oh, I'm going to slow down here. I'm going to speed up here. I'm going to maybe...
You critique yourself more.
Yeah. And you're modifying your set and all this stuff. And then you become more and more, like, each time you go up, you're less nervous and less nervous. But you still love it up there, and it becomes a kind of a different feeling. It becomes less of me just being like, whoa, what's going on? Like,
this is awesome, or this sucks.
Yeah, it's from barely holding on to now you're in control, and now you can do things, and it becomes a lot more consistent, and it still feels really good. But eventually you get less and less nervous before you go up. You always get nervous.
That's good. No matter how many times you do something, I think if you have that little bit of nerves, keeps you in line.
Yeah.
Have you yourself or seen anyone, I'm sure you have, like, bomb completely?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, man, lots of bombing.
Yeah. Have you yourself?
I've bombed, yeah.
Yeah, what's that like?
Oh, man.
I have such a hard time even watching. Like, when that happens, like, even watching Borat. You remember Borat?
Yeah.
I couldn't watch that movie because I don't know if it's by an enormous amount of empathy or something, because I just, like...
You know what? I'm gonna tell you something. You go on Reddit. Everyone who goes on Reddit, you gotta go on Reddit. You gotta go to this subreddit called Cringe, and it's like you remember like those terrible videos, Faces of Death, where it's like just people getting hit by cars and stuff like that. It's like that, except for social situations. So it's like weird handshakes. Like you go on there and you watch you like people like in interviews, or they're getting an award and like they'll say something, or it's everything is like such a faux pas, and you sit there and you go, oh no,
I
this
don't know
poor
if
guy.
I'd be able to do it. Oh my God.
It's so, I don't know why. I go to that every now and then, and I'm just like, oh, this is so, I sink in my chair. Like that's a great feeling. Like when I say feeling, I mean like you having empathy for people when it's really difficult. Oh, you should totally. I would almost want to pause the podcast, or we record it as we watch one of these, because you would die, man. Anyway, it's really rough when you bomb. It's really rough because you want to give them a good show. Mm-hmm. You know you're funny, and all of a sudden there's this thing, and it's anyone can bomb because it's a vibe. That's all that happens. There's one small thing that happens. Like I remember once I went to Yuck Yucks in Kitchener. I was performing, and I went up, and there's a bunch of things you can't do right off the top, because people, they see you and they go, okay, who's this guy? Okay, let's size him up. That's what everybody does. The guy comes on stage like, okay, well this guy's like a little bit of a nerdy guy, or this guy's he's a slob guy, and this is what I'm going to expect from his set. Well, I go up and I like shook the host's hand, and I walked past the microphone. I didn't say anything. I put my like notes down. I brought notes to a club show, fucking notes in front of like, I don't know, 150 people, I'd say. Wow. Like a packed room. And I brought notes, and I put them down, and it was quiet. And then I go, oh, hey, oh, and I start my thing. And it was just, I didn't bomb, but it was like, I broke I broke a rule there. Like, that's kind of like, we touch a little bit on this in the course too. It's like, here are like the basic things. Like with performing, we touch about performing for 15 minutes, because like in the end, like you got to do it yourself, man. But here's like the stuff you don't do. First thing you don't do is you don't come up with no energy. And you keep energy up there going. Anyway, I didn't do so hot that night, understandably. But I remember I performed at a show at Comedy Bar. This girl who's also in the scene, she's like, yeah, I'll give you a spot. And I'm a funny guy. I like to think I'm funny when I was still doing comedy. And then I go up, and for whatever reason, I don't know. I think I came up and I was like, I don't know, something happened. Like just the vibe in the room was weird, and I didn't mesh with it. And I came up and kind of, I don't know if I did something dickish, but like I just didn't come across good. Yeah. And like my first joke just missed completely. And I was like, because like if I don't get you on that one, like, you're not going to like any of these other ones. Any of these other ones at all. So, and here's another rule you don't do. I learned that day. You don't go, I guess you didn't like that one. You never never call it out.
Acknowledge it, yeah.
Power through.
Just move on.
But yeah, man, bombing. It sucks, and it's really. It's
got to be good though too, in a way, because if you bomb, especially really, really hard, that's like one of the worst things that, other than getting shot or hit by a train or something like that, must be the worst. And after that, you must feel like, okay, I'm alive. That happened, and now. It gives you more, I guess, frames of reference for just dealing with anything else in your life.
That is true.
Because people bomb everywhere. They don't bomb only in comedy. It's just kind of more publicized, I guess.
Yeah, that's like the epicenter of bombing is like a comedy club. You can bomb. I bomb all the time in like line at the grocery store. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. You don't even know.
But it's just between you and the cashier and whatever.
Yeah. And I'm like, who gives a shit, right? But I'm like, I do. I give a shit.
Yeah. Well, you acknowledge the bomb, but it's true. Like that feeling must be. I think people should bomb more, like in anything they do, really, because.
Yeah, I mean, like when you bomb. Here's the thing, though. When people go, I learned a lot when I bombed. It's like, you learn a lot when you bomb. Like, do you? Can you learn from nothing? Like, you hear no sounds. You hear a cough. It's like, I might as well be at home.
Yeah, just saying it to yourself.
Yeah, like, so it's like, you don't really learn anything about your material. You might learn something about your material. But it's like, if you're bombing, it's like, oh, no, you're just learning. The only thing you're learning there is like, Like, what's it like to bomb? It's like, oh, I'm learning that right now. I'm learning what it is to start from nothing. Every single joke. Like, I'm starting from absolutely nothing. I'm going to try this time. I'm going to try that time. But a true headliner is a pro, and pros don't bomb. They just have bad sets. A pro is always in control. A headliner is always in control. No matter what's going on, they'll go in and they'll just say, "Oh, I'm doing stand up at I just interviewed this guy Graham Chittenden. He's like, "Oh, I'm doing stand up at a candle factory at noon for like a bunch of factory workers." He's like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, I'll do it. I'll go." Wasn't a great show, but they liked me. Like. Send me in there. I'm like, oh, hey, Yankee or whatever.
Well, that makes it kind of seem like that bombing is a lot on yourself. It's that slow nosedive into, wow, this is going terribly. You start to sweat. You start to stumble. Yeah. Whereas if you kind of just played it off and went on to the next, it might not be so bad.
Exactly. Like Andy Kindler is one of the only guys in comedy that can he bombs. But every time his joke doesn't hit, which is every joke, he goes, "Oh, I guess you didn't like that one. All right, I guess I'm the asshole," or something like this. Like, he plays it off, and that's why he's hilarious. But if you do that any other time, like any other guy, the consensus is just power through. Just power through your set. Don't be like, "Oh, why didn't you like that one?"
Oh, hey guys.
I guess everyone likes insert race
it's
here.
It's like that, like, are you mad? Oh, are you mad? That kind of where you're like, you start questioning everything you're doing.
It's like your girlfriend.
Yeah. Oh, are you mad? Is everything okay?
Is everything okay? Are you upset? It's like, no, I'm not upset. Well, you're yelling. It's because you're fucking asking me what the fuck is wrong. Nothing's wrong.
Yeah, it's that slow plunge into.
Yeah, but when you bomb immediately. You're gonna bomb right off the bat. If you go up and you're like, hey, boom, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be rough. Now I gotta
deal with this for 15 minutes, whatever, 20.
Yeah, it's gonna be bad.
Just speaking of bombing, that's sort of one characteristic of people or comedians. What are some of the other ones that you've seen in successful comedians? Like other characteristics, whether it's from maybe a business standpoint or their professionalism, because the whole style thing's so subjective, right? I mean, the successful ones, they have their own style, they develop it.
Yeah.
But are there any skills you see, whether it's in dealing with people or people you've dealt with, that is common among successful comedians?
I can tell you, there's the two main. Well, one thing you notice most is professionals and people that are successful at it are usually very friendly. Like, they're friendly about it. They're easy to deal with. They're professionals, and they're happy, and they
positive attitude.
Yeah, like they're just a pleasure to work with. Like, I hear Tom Cruise is like such a pleasure to work with on set. That's what everyone says. Like, oh, he's such a nice guy, and blah blah. It's like, it's like, because this is like their home. Like, this is where they work. This isn't like you in the way of their dream or whatever, like what they feel this business should be. It's like, no, they know that this is it. This is what it's about, and they're happy to be there.
They embrace it. Yeah.
Like there's like Mark Ford and Mark Little, who's on Conan tonight. Or no, sorry, wait, yeah.
Is it tonight?
No, it is he. No, he's on Conan tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark Little from Picnic Face, and man, oh my God! Speaking of like fantastic performers, everyone should check out Mark Little. You should go see his improv troupe, an improv troupe he's with called Get Some. He's it's at Bad Dog Theaters. I think they have it every Wednesday in April. I'm pretty sure. Oh man, it's like some of the best comedians in the country, and they're doing a weekly show for $5 or $10. It's insane.
That's nothing. Yeah.
But yeah, he's really friendly, and like all the really big guys, they're really friendly. But okay, so you're like, a lot of you were saying out there, hey, I'm friendly. Why aren't I famous at what I do? And you're right. Okay, you're right. Let's go to point B.
Yeah.
We get it, Taylor. They're friendly. They're a lot of guys. They work and they work hard, and they're persistent. So the second point is they're persistent. So, and I don't want to preach through this podcast. I'm going to sound like an asshole.
Hey, well, people got to learn something, right? I mean, it's
but like you have to be persistent. And I know I hate hearing that. I hate hearing that from people in podcasts and books. Oh, just stay at it. Don't quit. And you're like,
keep going.
fuck off. Like, give me something I can use, right?
Yeah.
Like, give me, like, it's like Elaine watching The English Patient. And she's like, oh, yeah, sex in the back. Like, give me something I can use, right? And so it's being persistent. And what that means, how that translates to comedy, like, perfectly, is you go out and do shows every night, even when you don't feel like it, even when, you got shit going on.
It's one person in the audience or 50
you do a show. You do a show every night. You perform every single night. That's how you get good. And you won't be good for 2 years. And you have to do that every day for 2 years to be good. I use the example of this guy, John Hastings, who's this really, really funny comedian who's now in England. Because England isn't, maybe we can talk about it after, but England is the other scene that you go to, because there you make less than a doctor but more than a teacher as a comedian. And like,
that's pretty good.
So anyway, a lot of these guys now, Dylan Gott, one of his buddies and another good comic in the scene, he just left now. And anyway, you have to be persistent. So John, he did every day for 2 years except 3 days. I think one day was Christmas, and the other 2 days he had the flu. And every single night he performs.
Wow.
All these comics, every single night. Matt O'Brien, I can tell you right now, tonight he's at a show. For sure. Tonight he's at a show. And he's really good. And you see, I've been in this long enough to see the difference between guys that go out every night and guys that don't. And you can tell by leaps and bounds the guys that go out every night. Like this guy, Rob Mayu, I talk about him. He's a number one incredible producer and grinds so hard. That guy produces, he's the founder of the Dark Comedy Festival, who were like the first year, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. Yeah, I think 3 years ago. He produced his very first Dark Comedy Festival. He had like Maria Bamford and like Jim Norton and like Big J Okerson and a couple of other guys. I might have missed, I don't know if Big J was in the first one or whatever, but he like just, what the fuck? Like for me, I was like, okay, I'm like producing this show, and here's like, okay, I'm trying to get like 70 people. This guy was like all in, like a lot of money. This guy went all in and just did all this shit, and he does it, and he opens for these guys. Like that's what he does. Like he produces a show, and then he gets on these wicked shows, and he gets his name out there.
That's true. Yeah.
So now everybody knows who he is, and he is like. He is such, like, I saw him, I told him this the other day, and Rob does dark comedy. Like, Rob is, he has his, oh, man, I don't want to burn any of his bits, and I also
like
don't
dark
want to push.
as in very
he
grim
does,
or...
no, not grim, as in, like, he just talks about, like, being adopted, and, like, he used to be anorexic.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, dark is, like,
tough topics.
Like, yeah, he'll just say whatever. Like Jim Jeffries, right?
Yes.
Like
yes.
he
okay, I know
he
exactly
just talks about whatever the fuck. And one of his things he talks about, one of his jokes is this is one of my favorite things about him is he goes, yeah, like I'm I don't know. I don't want to buy. What? Can you burn him a bit? Yeah. Can you? What do you? I'm going to ask the comedy novice guy.
Yeah.
Wait, what's the etiquette in this situation? I think you can just go ahead and
do a heck of a lot better than I do.
Anyway, he does this bit about how he's adopted. And how he, being a white kid, he's got way better odds at being adopted. And everyone's like, oh my God. Like, everyone in the audience goes, oh, bad taste. He goes, oh, wait, I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry, which one of you has adopted a black baby? Yeah, that's what I thought. Shut the fuck up, right? And you're like, ho! Like,
Zing.
Yeah, you're right. Like, I am an asshole. But I'm so sorry, Rob.
Just embraces the...
Yeah. He embraces the darkness, right? Like, he'll just call it out. And I saw him 4 years ago, and I was like, I'm an asshole. I was a couch critic, right? I consume a lot of comedy. I'm like, Ebert.
Now I can critique it.
Yeah, which is such an... That's a part of the reason I'm doing transitions out of part of aspects of comedy uncovered, because it's like... you don't want to be the critique. You want to be a creator.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, I was watching him and I was like, yeah, he's funny. He's like a funny guy. But there's other guys that are funny.
Mm-hmm.
And with Rob, I saw him like 2 years later, and he just killed it. Like I saw him open he brought in Big J Okerson from New York, and I think that was the same show. He also brought in Dave Attell. Yeah, he brought in Dave Attell as well, and at the Danforth Music Hall, and he goes on stage and he was hosting, and he did like 15 or 20 minutes. I think it was 15 minutes of like really hilarious stuff. And it wasn't just, okay, like he's been writing. It's like he felt the room, he hit certain things, he reacted to things, and it was like, holy shit, this guy has been like, you can't pay money to go attend a course to learn that. Like,
yeah. He's done so many shows. He's picked up on everything.
He's a guy, and that's the like I consider that like one of the best case scenarios is like this guy went from not having a lot to being hilarious, and you see the progression, and like he is one of the best comedians I've seen. Like not even I've seen. That sounds like such an asshole thing.
Yeah,
he's one of the best comedians in the country, I think. Like for what he does, he's so good. I mean, like have you ever like kissed a girl?
There's that feeling again.
Yeah, you know, he's just so good. And he's bombed a bunch of times. I produced a show. I produced a show in my hometown, and a couple guys like bombed. Like it wasn't pretty. It wasn't, I don't know if it was a full bomb, but it was like, whoa, we are not getting. And I was like in the back, like holding my head. I was like, oh man, I'm never gonna be able to show my face in this town again. Then Rob came up and like just turned it around and nailed it. Like just nailed it, man.
Kind of saved everything.
Just
brought the tone back
brought
up.
it back up, and just like the other guys are good, but it just wasn't hitting. And these guys, that Rob just fucking beat it into these people, and he does. That's what he does. He'll be like, "What's that?"
Swooped in, boom, save the day.
So,
yeah.
So that's why I'm trying to hang out and possibly hug Rob May, because I love that guy. He's so good.
Rob, do it. Just give him a hug. Just one day, please give him a hug. So just to recap, there was Persistent was the second one. First one was.
First one was you got to be friendly.
Yes,
you got to be a chipper
friendly,
fellow.
Persistent, and then do shows
constantly. Yeah, persistent is every day, and like you have to perform every day. You also have to make the time, and like that comes at a cost, man. That's the biggest thing. That's what I didn't like.
You didn't want to sacrifice what you needed to sacrifice, or what they have sacrificed.
Like, you can say, "Oh, I'm going to be a comedian. I'm going to go do comedy." And then you do comedy like, 3 times, and you're like, "Wow, that's fun. All right, I'm good for a bit." It's like, no, these guys, like, they'll do it, and they're like, "Oh, I fucking love this. I'm going to do it every single day."
Yeah.
Some guys, they perform 4 days a week, and that's their regimen. And some guys perform 6 days, some guys 7 days. It just really depends on the guy.
Even on a broader thing, I guess just establishing a routine, almost picking something and following it no matter what.
Yeah, like these guys, they also, when you take writing courses and when you meet like a lot of like heavy writers, they'll talk about, maybe they'll do that the morning. First thing they do when they get up in the morning is they do the morning pages, right? Where you just write. Just vomit your brain.
Yeah, whatever you think of.
Yeah, and you don't read it for like a month, right? So some guys do that every morning. Some guys, John Hastings writes an hour a day, and he just goes, "Oh, shoes. Okay, what's funny about shoes?" And he'll write, for an hour about that. But yeah, these guys, they create a routine for themselves, for sure.
Yeah, similar to something more, I guess, like a day-to-day job, kind of 5-day-a-week type. And then establishing some consistency. Yeah.
Well, and also, like, there's comedians that part of being in comedy is like, you have to. Number one, every set they do, they have a goal. At the end of the set, they either want to get work on this joke, or they want to work on this aspect of their act. They want to work on certain
okay.
things. So every single set they do, unless it's a showcase set, every single set they try to work on something.
So like, I'm going to try this new joke out, or
or
whatever.
But they'll say it's not even try that joke. It'll be like, oh, I'm gonna try and ad lib a line over here on this joke on this set
okay.
on this
In
part.
hopes of improving it.
Or because when you're in the moment, something funny will probably come up, on the vibe of the room and whatever, and that's when the good stuff happens. So
it almost doesn't even seem like jokes anymore. It's almost like stories or topics presented in a certain way. Because I was watching, I don't know if you remember this guy. He was on Stern, the Jackie the Joke Man Martling. You ever heard of the guy?
No, I heard of him.
He's written for Stern. And I don't think he's been active for a while, but he was literally just going up and just spewing jokes. And it seems like it's moved away from that a lot to where it's kind of just talking about different things or topics and then presenting them in the style of the comedian and then just kind of relating it to people sometimes in a certain way, but totally seems to move away from that. Oh, guy walked into a bar.
It's a lot more meta now. Like, I think that's a natural part of comedy and any real skill and community is like it evolves because if you go up, there's a lot of great jokes that are same style of jokes that are done over and over, right? Like it's like any storytelling or whatever. We have the archetypes, the archetypal characters and circumstance that make a good story. Same thing in comedy, like the guy that the really vulgar guy or whatever. That's a bullshitty answer. But we evolve as a comedy community and as consumers because I go, if another guy comes along like Dimitri Martin, you're gonna go, but I've seen Dimitri Martin. Like I've seen him. Like
so exactly what this guy is.
I've seen what that is. So give me something new. And it's like a numbers game. Like you have so many people doing so many different types of acts. It's like, okay, well, give me something new, give me something fresh. And now it just so happens, I don't know. I think in my opinion that it's like there's a lot more comedy nerds and a lot more like people that are
like enthusiasts or people that are just want to live comedy.
Yeah.
And then it kind of filters into
and it's like, so now these guys go up and they'll say stuff and they're like, oh, I get what he's doing. He's doing a thing on comedy. Right? It's like it's a lot like the nameless comic or whatever, the comic with no name who used to wear like a paper bag on his head.
Oh.
Anyway, he was like in like the 80s or whatever. He wore like a paper bag on his head, and it was kind of like, he was just kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, you didn't know where it was going.
Like the story that I'm telling you about this guy with a bag. I don't know, where is this going?
I don't know. It's just like him, I guess. He's nowhere to be seen.
But like these guys, they it's a lot more meta now, which means it comments on itself. So there's I'm trying to think, as this always fucking happens. I'm trying to think of this comedian who goes up. No, I'm not going to get it. If you can imagine, I forget things.
Yeah.
You can imagine. But he just goes up and he like does a bit on how he's a comedian. Anyway.
And then people acknowledge it and see what he's doing. Yeah. And then rework it and say, okay.
Well, they're like, oh, I see what he's doing. He's doing like a commentary on comedy. Oh, I get it. So then when they're like, oh, yeah, take my wife. People are like, he's not really saying that. He's saying how shitty comedy is now or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the joke of this guy.
It critiques itself and then from that evolves.
Yeah, you can just edit my part out of that. These past 4 minutes.
Oh no, it's staying.
Apologize.
Staying. It's gold. It's pure gold, man. Come on.
Called Jerry.
Ovaltine. What roundtine? So what I definitely want to do is recap your favorite comics and comics that you think people should see, venues that you know of that people can go to, and then also just about a little bit, not about Comedy Uncovered, but what you think kind of people should know about it, how they can learn about it, and then what shows you have coming up.
Okay.
Too. So first was just comedians that you think people should know and check out.
Okay, here are the comedians that you should definitely know and check out. Chris Locke, part of Last Sabbath, Dom Pere, the guys I already talked about, right? Then you got Pat Thornton, the Triple Threat. You can see these guys you can pretty much always see these guys at Comedy Bar. Dom is like traveling now around Canada and the States. He's going to be harder to track down. But Mark Little, who's also part of Get Some, which is this... you got to go see, okay? Get Some is really great because there's these performers like Chris Wilson from Peter and Chris. Peter and Chris are like this sketch duo from Vancouver. And they like go around to all these fringe festivals and they create hour-long shows of these sketches, but they're not even sketches. It's like one story. It's like it's a fucking two-man play, but it's hilarious, man. They do these insane like scene work and like physical bits, and like the chemistry of them is so great. Oh man! So Peter and Chris, if you can, they even have full shows on YouTube. And on their, I think Peter and Chris show is them on Twitter, and then you can also check them out online. And I'm telling you, if you're on, like, you can put on headphones and watch it at work. It's really, really good. So if you can see them at a fringe show, also Tony Ho. I first saw these guys, Tony Ho. They're like 3 to 4. Yeah, it's like a 4-man sketch troupe. And it's like Roger Bainbridge, Miguel Rivas, Adam Niebergall. Sorry, Adam, man. I don't know. I've never said your name out loud. And then Daniel Byrne, Daniel Byrne is he's on like Space Riders, which is this big web series, and he got a Canadian Comedy Award for Dad Drives that he created with Mark Little, where it's just them drive. Man, watch Dad Drives. Usually, here's the thing. Whenever you hear someone say like web series, you're like, okay,
yeah,
like
okay,
that's you trying to get me to watch some bullshit, right? Just this isn't a web series. These are like awesome videos, and it's just a guy. Dan plays the son who's home for the summer, and his dad, Mark Little, has this huge duster mustache. It just drives him around, and they just shoot it from like the windshield of the car. And it's great. It's just really, really funny. Anyway, so Dan, Adam, Miguel, and Roger have this sketch troupe, this really dark sketch troupe called Tony Ho. And like their sketches are about like, one of their sketches is about how, like for example, this is like the kind of dark, like you should, number one, go, I'm sorry, this is going to be, this is what I fucking do, man. I love this stuff.
Hey, I hear you. I can see and feel your enthusiasm.
For everyone at home, I've got an erection. No.
If only you could see his face right now.
Where's Rob?
Smile from ear to ear.
Weird. So, yeah, Tony Ho, you go to their website, and they have these they probably have 5 or 6 now, videos. And they are, like, these insane videos, man. I equate it to, it's like if Quentin Tarantino wrote for Saturday Night Live. Like, it is
top notch.
It is top notch, and it blows you away, man. Like the stuff they talk, like one of them's like it's called, there's like time travel, and another one there's like a monster, and another one is called Western. It's a period Western like piece, and
made funny.
And it's 8 minutes long. It's pretty much silence for the first 3 minutes. But then it hits, and you're like, oh my, like the first, like it's 3 minutes of tension, and then they hit you. But anyway, I've interviewed Tony Ho a bunch of times. Had them on the show, and I didn't preface them when I went on the show. I was like, yeah, here's a sketch troupe, and then they just go up and they're like, pow, and they're like, everyone's like, what the fuck? What the fuck was that? You know, these guys.
They had no idea what we're getting into.
Oh, they didn't, and it fell on his face for sure. But they have this sketch. Where they have a guy in a morgue, and he's teaching these like PhD students or whatever how to they're about to like dissect a dead person, and then he's like, okay, this was a real person, but before we do this, we have to all tell a secret. And he's like, that's how you pay honor
homage to the dead.
Yeah. And so they're like, okay, well, I did this one thing, and this other guy's like, I did this other thing, and this other guy's like, well, this really fucked up shit. And you're like you don't expect it. And I know, and they have this thing called, like, this sketch called Japan, Anyway, this must be really boring for audio people. Are like, okay, I get it. I'll go check them out. Anyway, you got to check them out. They're insane. And if you can see them live,
out, man.
if you can, go see them live. Then you got Peter and Chris, the Suffragettes, which is like Kayla Lorette and Becky Johnson, this 2-woman improv troupe, who are like, they like were born to do improv. Like they are born performers, and they are just really
so good at it.
They're just great, and they have such
like
good
naturals.
chemistry. They've been doing it for years. They're really, really good. They do Catch 23. A lot of Catch 23. Okay, so there's 2 fantastic shows at Comedy Bar. Catch 23 every Friday night, 8 o'clock, Comedy Bar. And pretty much what they do there, they have 4 teams, and you have, you have 4 teams, and you have they have to be doing improv for 23 minutes across 4 different scenes. And
like straight.
Like no.
Okay.
They have 3 teams or 4 teams or whatever it is, and they say, okay, this team 1, they have 23 minutes of improv across 4 scenes.
Oh, okay,
so they'll do 1 scene, and then if it ends early, then they'll be like, okay, it's gonna like the audio visual guy, usually Mark Andrada, who is the best tech in the city. He'll cut it. He'll be like, okay, natural endpoint of the scene's right here, because that's how improv ends. And then, okay, that was a 6-minute scene. Okay, next round. Now they're at, okay, maybe they're at 12 minutes. Well, last round they have to do like, whatever, do the math there. 11 minutes of comedy, 11 minutes of improv, and it's so great because you see them struggling, and you see them, and it's the best, and it's improv, right? Like they'll get suggestions from the audience.
Anywhere, yeah.
And it goes anywhere, and usually, but the thing is, they're all really great performers. So when they bomb, you're laughing at them because they're bombing, and they know they're bombing, and they can't do anything about it. And so everyone's
so they just
laughing.
go with, instead of like pitying them, you're just
you're like,
with them.
this guy's the worst. He knows he's caught. You know. And the other really great show is this show. Usually, I think it's the like, I don't know, 2nd or 3rd Friday of every third Friday of every month at Comedy Bar, or last Friday. I don't know. Check it out. Rap battles, and rap battles is like they do character battles. So it'll be like mom jeans versus like booty shorts or whatever, right? So someone personifying,
Mom jeans,
mom jeans will like go and be like, and they'll do a rap, and they change the whole setup of the room. It's friggin' electric. It's won like Canadian Comedy Awards. It's been featured in like Just for Laughs 42 and all this stuff. Ridiculous, man. You got to see these guys. Like it's on 11 o'clock at night, so it's like it's a party show. You go and you want to party.
Go, and then afterwards
There's this guy Alex Tyndall, who's a really fantastic improviser. One of his like other characters are like Mr. Dress Up versus the Tickle Trunk, and then Alex Tyndall did like the Alex Tyndall versus himself. So he came out and he's like, and he's rapping. He had his friend carry this monstrous mirror, and he's walking around, and he's just like, fuck this. I'm gonna like being all hard, and then when in return, he's like, you're just saying that because like your mom left you, and like you're really hurt deep down, and like it's so crazy. It's such a crazy show. Miguel Rivas and his brother Freddie Rivas does this. He does this other bit, not on the rap battles, but it's like lamb chop. He's got like the lamb chop puppet, and he does like air guitar. I mean, like air. Anyway, not air guitar. Fuck, I'm butchering his own. This very special, unique thing. I'm just gonna butcher it. It's like farting, but like with your hand. Yeah. I don't know. Not that at all. You should go. Anyway, he does a really great show as well. But anyway, those guys host it, and they come out with all this bling and like this plate. He's got like a glow in the dark like PlayStation controller
like
around his
Flava Flav type.
Yeah, but it's just outrageous. They have like backpacks on, and he does like, he'll like reference like Noam Chomsky and stuff. It's fucking hilarious. So
where can people go see?
So thanks for listening to that vomit of. You're like, whoa, man. Okay, we get it. I would go to Comedy Bar to go see any of these shows. Just go to the Comedy Bar website. They have all these shows. As for my shows, I typically have it like the third or second or third Saturday of every month, 9 p.m. My next one is April 11th, where I've got Hunter Collins hosting. Chris Locke is headlining. Then I've got this two-man no-show, and it's Ken Hall and Isaac Kessler. And there's this duo, this improv duo, and they're fantastic. You might recognize them. Isaac is this like big, tall Jewish guy, and Ken is this like short. He's like short, really, really short guy. You see him in commercials and stuff. Anyway, they performed on the show once before, and one person yelled out "mom" and another person yelled out "sex," so it came out as "mom sex." And then these guys are like, what? Like, mom? He's like, no, you guys said mom sex. We're doing mom sex. So they did this like really crazy 15-minute set, and it was like blew the roof off.
Where would you even take that?
Yeah, it was crazy. So anyway, they're doing a set, and then I've got this. Get this. I got a fucking magician. This guy, a shoddy magician. He had
shoddy
that's
magician.
his character.
Okay.
Steve Bullianto, he does this character, a shoddy magician, and he had his own fringe show and stuff, and he does like a shoddy magician, like he's just like a shitty magician, but it's so good. And then this guy, Marito Lopez, little tiny El Salvador guy, who's like fired up, and I've seen him rant about like he's
the most non-rantable subjects.
You could have it was like someone yelled out something, and he ran with this for like 5 minutes, and it was I'm like, what? Like I've seen him do that twice. I'm like, there's no way he's writing this. There's no way. Like he'll comment on something and he'll run with it, and I'm like, that joke. There's no way that joke wasn't pre-written, and it wasn't.
So where's it coming from?
It's this, and I'm like, this guy's like a little tiny powerhouse, and he waves his fucking hands around, and he's like 4'11", man. He is hilarious. Okay. So anyway, that's my next show, April 11th. I got another show, June 13th, equally as fantastic. Mm-hmm. And I also now am producing these bigger shows. Like I'm bringing in Joe DeRosa, who was co-host of Uninformed with Bill Burr, and he's been on like Louis and Chelsea lately and all that stuff. Anyway, Pete Holmes' show. He does this thing on Pete Holmes' show called New Material Seinfeld, where he plays like a puppet, and it's like Jerry Seinfeld as a puppet doing new material. Oh man, it's so good. But I'm bringing him in, and he's a lot in the vein of like Rob Mayu, where he just like he'll just call shit out, and that's why I love comedy. I love guys like Bill Burr. I love guys like Joe DeRosa, Rob Mayu, because these are and Rebecca Kohler, another fantastic female comedian. I don't even want to say female comedian. She's a fucking. You got that from Rebecca.
Yeah.
Rebecca, the super Jack Black dude. Yeah. Anyway, these people, they talk about like the real shit going on, and
they actually make real commentary.
Yeah.
Don't hold back.
That's why I wanted to say this. I was like, make sure you hit this point in this podcast. It's like, I love comedy because it's humanity. I love comedy because not because it's comedy, but I love comedy because it expresses like our deepest motivations, and it's one of the only things where it can call shit out. Like I read, like when you read like Chekhov, right? Chekhov's got some plays where he's talking about like class, and then you talk about like you listen to like Noam Chomsky, and you read stuff by like John Berger. I'm name dropping all these asshole things. Those are the only people I read. Okay?
Yeah.
Right. But these guys, they talk about humanity. They talk about, okay, what's the real motivation behind every action we do, and what's the real nature of man, and all this stuff. Like they're not skirting around anything. They're like, this is what the fuck is up.
Yeah.
And he's like, Joe
I don't
DeRosa.
care who knows it. This is the way
he's like,
it
yeah.
is.
He's like, oh, you want to sit and like, you want to exist in this made up world that you just believe in, like that you only believe in, that you've created. He's like, no, man, this is the fucking world. And they'll call it out, and you're like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. It's about truth. That's really what it's about. That's why I love comedy. That's why anyway.
Wow.
I just like blow up, but it's one of the only places where you can find unfiltered truth. And the guy, he's like this is what the fuck is going on. This is what's up with me. Anyone else feel like that? Anyone? And you're like, yeah, man, I feel like that. Fuck
Real talk.
Real talk.
How do you, I don't even think we can end a different way.
No.
Like that
No,
was
we have
just
to.
triumphant.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would love to hit more.
Website, anything you want to promote, Twitter, social media
Yeah.
for Comedy Uncovered, anything like that?
Social media, you can find me on Foursquare. No. You only meet in a certain spot though. Kind of rare. I'm at the McDonald's at DuPont and Lansdowne. There's no McDonald's there. Yeah, I'm pretty low traffic. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Comedy Uncovered. I tweet promo and facts. No, I don't tweet facts, but like news, shows, and like you want to be in the know of like what's going on in the Toronto comedy scene. Visit comedyuncovered.com where we do interviews. We have videos and all that jazz. Also check us out for our live shows. And then also on Facebook at Comedy Uncovered. But, everyone fuck Facebook now with their new rules. They got to, like, pay to promote and all this jazz.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can hit me up on Facebook. I'll hit you up, too, man. We'll be a couple of bros just hitting each other up.
Go see comedy, people.
Yeah, go see comedy.
Especially after that talk on the real truth. That was very, very profound.
If it wasn't comedy, it would be writing, and I would be sitting here talking about writing. But there's no other medium than fucking comedy. Yeah, unfiltered truth, and that's
uncovered.
It's yeah.
There we go.
You know what? Is it comedy uncovered or is it truth uncovered?
Or both.
Or both.
They're synonyms, comedy and truth. Oh, that was good.
True. It's like Bill Burr's new special. You watch Bill Burr's new special? Listen to his fucking special. 10 minutes of his, and you're like everyone's laughing at everything he's saying. It's all true, Even the racist parts. No, no, I'm just joking. I'm not racist. Yeah. Am I?
I don't know. Okay, guys, if you like the podcast, you can follow me on Twitter at EYC Kaz. It's also on Facebook at Elevate Your Craft, all one word. Instagram is also EYC Kaz. There's also the website elevateyourcraft.net. Thanks a lot for being here, man.
Thank you, Matt.
Fantastic.
This was I hope your readers don't mind filtering through a bunch of word brain vomit. I really hope you guys got something from it.
The people that like and love comedy, I'm sure we'll get something out of it.
Hopefully.
For sure. And it's just really funny too.
Good.
But that's all the time we got for today, guys. Thanks very much, and I'll talk to you soon.